How's it going? Vince here. Battlefield 5 is out, and with it comes DICE's take on single player. In Battlefield 5, the story is broken up into small mini-stories called war stories. Each one tells tales from different parts of the war from Africa to France. In this video, I'm going to break down one by one the pros and cons of this format, what I like and dislike. First up, Under No Flag. This story follows a mischievous Billy Bridger. From the start of the story, Billy is in prison for a bank heist. He is then soon approached by SBS officer George Mason. He offers Billy a way out for his service in the SBS, specifically for his explosive knowledge. The mission starts off landing on a beach with other SBS soldiers, and this is where I have my first nitpick with the story. Very early after landing on the beach, half of the team you land with separates, never to be seen again. I would have enjoyed this story much more if it felt like a special operation mission, and a small team are tasked with destroying enemy airplanes behind enemy lines. Because as fun as fighting hordes of enemies can be, it lacks believability. How can just 2 SBS soldiers, and mind you only one has been formally trained, fight hordes and hordes of enemy soldiers? Put your disbelief aside, the 2 characters, more so Billy, is just unlikable. From the very moment you see him, he just whines and whines about everything.
Do you like the fucking seaside?
Teams of 2, move!
I'm sick! I'm chucking me guts up over here!
Oh.
And you're just strolling off!
Oh, Bridger, liven yourself up, come on. There's a lovely little ice cream shop down there and I'm treating you to a cornet.
And it made me dislike this character from the very start. So after some reconning of the airbase, taking enemies down and planting your explosives on the plane, the explosives Billy places fails to go off. This leads to the plane taking off and starting gun runs on you. Of course there's directions to go to the nearest AA, leading to a very overdone plane shoot 'em up that's been done so many times in every other franchise. Seriously, want some advice? Don't do this. And if you do, I'm going to give you a free tip. Do it in a story that takes place in Pearl Harbor. It would lead to much more engaging gameplay. The story then throws the characters in a car and they drive off. It does a bad job of transitioning the story though, with huge gaps in between that we have no geographical indication of how far from the first act we've actually traveled. Seriously, the transition from the first act to the second is a car ride. It feels out of place and lazy, and you go from the beachhead, cloudy skies, to clear skies and scorching desert. It feels out of place, and once again, we never rendezvous with the guys we seen in the beginning. Perhaps they died, I guess, but for me, the complete environment change ruined it for me. I felt like I was going to a new level rather than advancing through Africa. You're then tasked with a list of enemy things that have to be destroyed. This whole story is go here, blow that up, go there, blow that up. It's boring. The whole second stage could have been absent and it wouldn't have made a difference. Other than the visuals of the desert and scorching heat, this part is so forgettable. But hey, to progress the story, George needs bandages, so go here and get them. And don't forget, Billy, make sure you screw up again and over the radio broadcast exactly where you're heading. Third act involves yet again another car ride. Seriously, this is a bad transition any way you put it. At this point, I was thinking, please let it be over already. Nope, can't be so lucky. There's a third act, this time 2 soldiers, because now that George got his band-aid, he's able to help you fight against hordes of soldiers and tanks with all this conveniently placed weapons and field gun emplacements that apparently were abandoned there because we just rolled up there like we owned the damn place. Long story short, because I don't want to drag this on any longer and actually get to the 2 stories that deserve to be talked about, the radio broadcast Billy put out allowed British ships and planes to rain hell and save the day. Overall, this story was really boring in my opinion. It could have benefited from more characters, and if it didn't have those terrible transitions between the different acts. Oh, and the German you shoved in the trunk and forgot wasn't funny to me at all, and just added to the ridiculousness that is this war story. Next up, Nordlys. In this story, you play as a resistance fighter trying to stop the Germans from shipping heavy water to create an atom bomb. This level involves a lot of stealth as you infiltrate deeper behind enemy lines. Overall, I like this approach to this mission, and let me just stop for a second and appreciate the visuals on this. This is a truly beautiful environment that they've created here, from sweeping mountains and snow effects to the northern lights. If you've never experienced the northern lights in person, this game does a damn good job of showing the true beauty of them. I feel like the dev team spent a lot more effort on this story than the first one. You start off with a cutscene of a German lieutenant interrogating a woman. The woman is the mother of the character you play. She's one of the scientists working in the plant, and she knows what the heavy water will be used for, and decides somebody needs to stop them from delivering the water. In the beginning, you can see Germans throwing bodies of the failed commando raiding team in a pit. It's a small detail, but it's small details that make the story feel alive. As you cross the underside of a bridge, the wind actually blows you around and you can fall off. The first time I played this level, I was looking down to see the detail and I accidentally fell off the map. There's a ton of small details throughout this whole level. For example, as you're running away after being thrown off the bridge, you can hear dogs barking in the distance. Really does an excellent job of adding to the imminent danger you feel as if you're being hunted down in this blizzard. This is followed by a narrow passage in the mountain where raging winds are being funneled through the mountain. All these small details made this more memorable. I can't even remember who I played in the first story.
Oh yes you did. Because you're Billy Bridger. You are the son of big, bad, horrible Arthur Bridger.
Oh yeah, Billy, how could I forget? Anyway, both of the characters in Nordlys are memorable since the character you play is the daughter. This naturally leads to a more in-depth relationship between the two. The dialogue has more weight to it because of this. The German lieutenant as well has depth. You can throughout the progression of the story tell he has reservations about what he is doing, but ultimately he's following his orders. It shows compassion on the side of history often demonizes, and it's done well. Even if this lieutenant disagreed with what his mission was, he was still going to do it for the fear of death himself. The transitions in this story are handled well. It transitions from one section to the next seamlessly. The final act brings daylight as you have to ski down the mountain, reconning different sites vital for the heavy water shipment. The whole time you're doing the same thing as the first story, but this time it has much more meaning to it, and it's backed up through the characters' dialogue and visuals. The final act of the story sees the submarine submerging through the ice as the mother sees no other option but to pull the pin on a grenade and sacrifice herself for the greater cause. Her death has weight to it. It's the sacrifice that makes it memorable. To lose your life for the preservation of millions, her sacrifice has meaning both for humanity and the fact that her daughter is helplessly watching by. The story did a good job building an emotional connection that makes the end that much better. Overall, I think this is by far the best out of the three available at launch. The third and final of the three is Tirailleurs. You follow a unit of black soldiers that are stuck wanting to serve their country, but held back due to racial norms in the time period. It starts with the main character eager to get out there and prove his worth. He's then greeted with menial tasks assigned to them behind the front. The story really kicks off when a young captain believes that they could fight the same as all other French soldiers. Before I get into this one, I want to say I missed a lot of dialogue due to it being in French, which is by no means a complaint. I love that they chose to make them speak native language, because it tells the story more accurately. My only gripe with it is the main character you play is recalling these events, and in the middle of combat as bullets are flying past and you're trying your best to stay behind cover, you miss dialogue. If I spoke French, this would be a delight, but I ended up missing all the dialogue during actual combat. Anyways, you and your unit are tasked with storming the enemy front line to destroy artillery. This story gives you those classic storming the front gameplay, as people are dying around you from machine gun emplacements and you're fighting for every inch of land at heavy casualties. You eventually break the line and your unit is very celebratory, except for the character you play. He wants to keep advancing on the Germans instead of waiting for French reinforcements. He gives a speech and rallies everyone to push the line. When he's telling this speech, it seems to take very little effort to actually get everybody to agree with him, even though the man in charge is hesitant the entire time. My biggest and only major complaint of this story is the transition in the middle of the woods, where you're all alone. This makes no sense. Maybe I missed something here, but this part suffers from this. As you progress through this stage, you find remains of your unit, but I don't understand why we weren't on the front of the assault as we've been so far in the story. This is just like the first war story. It can be completely removed, and it wouldn't change a single thing in this. You eventually do make it back to your unit, where you're then tasked with destroying the enemy's AA emplacements. This part of the mission felt like the most intense fighting, probably due to it being a very narrow playing field. I really enjoyed this part. Once captured and secured, a German soldier tells them that they're not retreating, rather regrouping, and planning a counterattack from all sides. Our main character says the one place they won't expect them is to storm the nearby German HQ. The story does a final push as you storm the fortress, and apparently we're in charge now? Okay, I guess. The story ends with a battle against a tank, and I must say this is a hell of an ending cutscene. ends up at the cost of your former leader. After all their effort, they're asked to take a photo of the celebration, where the men that fought to the death weren't even represented, once again showing the racial divides back then. Overall, Nordlys steals the show out of these three. I'm hoping The Last Tiger has a story as in-depth as Nordlys. I think Nordlys is the best war story they've made, even compared to all of Battlefield 1's. They've definitely hit on a format that really works, and DICE every release is getting better at telling stories. My only wish is future titles can deliver one story as compelling as they've shown here. The biggest problem I have with these shorter stories is sometimes they feel rushed, when instead of having 4 stories that take roughly 2 hours or so, depending on how fast you choose to play them, they should have 1 and have more character development, more in-between interactions, stretch it out over a week-long conflict, and really tell the event and have moments of intense combat with extended times of calm. It's really good to see DICE every release continue delivering a story and getting better at doing so. I can't wait to play The Last Tiger, and I will do another analysis of that story as well, so stay tuned for that. I just want to say thank you if you stuck around to the end. It means a lot if you'd like, subscribe, and tell me your thoughts down in the comments about these war stories. And as always, have a nice day, and I will catch you in the next one.